camera off?
Yep. Okay, Thomas.
Yeah, so we're live.
Yep.
Welcome everybody to Reclaim webinar number 40. Quite a milestone we've reached here. So welcome everybody. My name is Thomas Kjeldsen, and I'll be hosting today's meeting. Next slide. Yeah, so just a bit of background to the Reclaim Network. It's a collaborative effort that's been ongoing for a number of years between various research-intensive universities, Surrey, Bath, Warwick, the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology, and Bangor University, with a lot of associate partners from academia, local government, and industry. As part of our network, we've run a series of webinars, and this is number 40. So we run them monthly, the first Wednesday of every month at this time, 12:30. And we've had 2 speakers every week, and they last an hour. And say this is number 40, and you can find recordings of the 39 other webinars on our website, and there's so much material and so many interesting speakers there, so I very much encourage you to have a look at that. Next slide. So the Reclaim Network has been running for a number of years. It was funded by the Research Council, and as part of the project we have delivered an awful lot of material in terms of synthesis studies of the literature, scoping out state-of-the-art in green infrastructure. We've organized workshops, secondments, webinars, we've held conferences, photo competitions. We're compiling a big database that you can query if you want to know more about the scientific evidence for impacts of GTBIs, etc. Lots of work by lots of people and lots of material, and all this material you can find and you can access via our website. So I very much encourage you to visit that if you have not already done so. So for today's webinar, we have the pleasure of inviting 2 speakers. First, we have Steve Archer. Steve is a project manager for the Environment Agency, and he's working on the Guildford Flood Alleviation Scheme, which I'm sure will be of interest to many people in Guildford who've experienced flooding over the past few years. And then the second speaker, we got Professor Prashant Kumar, who's project lead for the Reclaim Network itself. So it's a pleasure to give him the opportunity to talk, because he normally gives other people the opportunity. So look forward to that. And Prashant is going to introduce a new network that's going to be a sort of continuation of the work done in the Reclaim Network. It's called the GREENIN Network, but we've now, this project will focus on the indoors, where Reclaim perhaps was more on the outdoors. So I will then now introduce our first speaker then. So first speaker is Steve, and Steve is a chartered professional engineer. He has many years more than 30 years of experience of project management across lots of civil engineering sectors, water, highways, buildings, power, you name it, where he's delivered lots of outcome for clients, consultants, contractors, etc. So Steve normally works for Mott MacDonald, but he's currently seconded to the Environment Agency as project manager for this complex Guildford Flood Alleviation Scheme. And Steve is going to introduce his work and the scheme here. So Steve, without further ado, over to you.
Okay, well, many thank you for introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. Can you put your thumb up to make sure you can hear me okay? Yep, excellent. So yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about the Guildford Flood Alleviation Scheme. I hope the talk will be interesting and informative. The talk should last for just over 15 minutes, and I'm reassured from the introduction that my presentation covers many of the interest areas mentioned. So next slide, please. Okay, firstly, I have a couple of very quick slides on who am I and who are the Environment Agency. This is just to set the context. So firstly, this slide is who am I? So I'm Steve Archer. I'm Environment Agency Project Manager for Guildford Flood Alleviation Scheme. And as project manager, I have many responsibilities, but chiefly I have overall responsibility for delivering the project, and that includes delivering the project on time, to budget and to scope. I'm also responsible for health, safety and environmental compliance, stakeholder management and everything else that goes with the project. So I started my career as a chartered civil engineer, and the second half of my career has been spent specialising as a project manager. So my presentation will be from the perspective as a project manager. Next slide, please. So this slide is on who are the Environment Agency, which I will abbreviate to EA. Hopefully some of you, or hopefully many of you, would have heard of the Environment Agency, but if not, I just wanted to explain who the Environment Agency are and what we do. So the EA is a public body in the UK. We're sponsored by who are the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. And the mission of the EA is an excellent one, is to protect and improve the environment and create better places. And as part of this mission, flood risk management is a key priority. So EA have committed £7.8 billion of spend over the next 10 years to better protect properties from flood risk. So that's a huge investment in the country to better protect against flooding, and the Guildford project is an important part of that programme. So that concludes the quick introduction, and now we'll get on to the main bit of the presentation. So next slide, please. Right, my presentation will be split up into 4 different sections. The first part is an overview of Guildford. Second part is what we're doing to reduce flood risk. And parts 3 and 4 are the main focus, which is on blue-green infrastructure and environmental enhancements. Next slide. And then next slide again, please. Right. So firstly, this is an aerial photograph of Guildford town centre to hopefully set the context. On the left-hand side shows the River Wey runs through the centre of Guildford town centre. And in the right-hand side, Guildford is a large town in Surrey in the south of England. And Guildford is located approximately 30 miles southwest of London. Next slide. So this slide sets out the key problem, the key challenge, and the key challenge is that Guildford suffers flooding from the River Wey. I know some of you will either live in Guildford or go to university in Guildford or work in Guildford. So Guildford has suffered flooding from the River Wey many times over the years. The left-hand plan shows the extent of flooding in the town centre when the River Wey floods. And in essence, there are hundreds of properties at risk of flooding in the town centre, and that's residential properties and also commercial properties. And on the right-hand side, I've got a couple of photos of previous flooding in the town centre. So you can see the top right shows the flooding does get very deep in the town centre, and you can just see car roofs in that photo. So next slide, please. This slide is just to make people aware that there's a lot of media interest in the Guildford project. So on this slide, this is just a few of the recent media articles. about breathing new life into the town centre, biggest opportunity in a century. So they've captured the importance of the project, and a key focus of the project is going to be stakeholder engagement and continue to be stakeholder engagement. We really need the support of the public. So we've been holding a number of public events in Guildford Town Centre, and so far, so good. We have significant support from the public and stakeholders. So we're working hard to keep it that way with people supportive. Next slide, please. This slide, I'll keep this brief. We also have a active social media presence, including posting on X, formerly Twitter. So on this slide shows a couple of posts from the last couple of weeks, and the post on the left-hand side aligns really with the theme of today's presentation, which is green, blue spaces and improving the riverside environment. Right, thank you. Moving on to the next slide. Thank you. So part two is just a quick whistle-stop tour of the project. So a couple of slides to show how we are reducing flood risk. I will try to keep things as non-technical as I can for this presentation, but there's a huge amount of technical detail that underpins what I'm saying. So the slide I've got shown now is an overview of proposals in the town centre. And as I said, there's a lot of detailed drawings to underpin what I'm showing here. So in essence, on this drawing, the blue line indicates the proposed alignment of the flood defences, and we're proposing approximately 2 kilometres of new flood defences, and these flood defences will be integrated into the existing environment. The orange hatching indicates there's 3 locations where we are proposing land lowering, and the land lowering are to provide more space for water to reduce flood risk. So on this plan, I've got a number of labels to try to explain the location of the proposals, but it's slap bang in the middle of the town centre. So in the bottom right, we're going to have defences by the High Street. Moving towards the middle, we've got proposals by Odeon Cinema, and then moving towards the top of the project, we've got proposals both sides of Walnut Tree Close. So we're going to be working slap bang in the middle of the town centre to improve the town centre and protect the town centre. So the proposals I've got shown on this plan, they reflect a flood defences for a 1 in 100 year flood event. So that's equivalent to a 1% chance of a flood in any given year. The proposals also include a suitable allowance for climate change resilience. So in essence, the proposals are to protect against the big flood event, and we're ensuring that all of our defences are fit for the future. So a 1 in 100 year flood event with climate change is a massive flood that we are looking to protect against. So in terms of flood defences, everything we're doing is also considering positive environmental outcomes. And it's also a partnership project with Guildford Borough Council and Surrey County Council. So as I mentioned, we're looking to protect against the big flood event, and at the risk of stating the obvious, the impact of flooding can be absolutely devastating. And just one example is the deadly flooding in Valencia last year. It's easy to be complacent at present. Rivers are relatively low and flowing nice and gently, but when we do get the big flood events, it can be absolutely devastating. Next slide. Thank you. So this is changing tack completely. This sets out the different delivery stages for Environment Agency projects and most other types of of projects. So projects are split up into 4 different stages, and the red arrow shows where we are now, and we are currently undertaking the appraisal stage. And the appraisal is a really key stage because the conclusion of appraisal is identification of a preferred option, which sets out exactly what the scheme is going to entail. So once we complete the appraisal stage, we will then move on to the detailed design stage, and after that we move on to the construction stage. So after each stage, it's important that we have an approved business case, and that business case will confirm the project is viable. And at present, where we are with the appraisal, it shows that the project has an excellent economic case. For every £1 spent, we are getting approximately £4 in economic benefits. So by investing in this type of project, we are getting positive economic outcomes for UK PLC and for Guildford Town Centre itself. So next slide, please. So this is now moving on to the main part of the presentation, which will focus on the blue-green infrastructure enhancements. Next slide. So this slide sets the scene, and this shows a few photos of Guildford for people who are not familiar. So Guildford is a really successful town with a huge amount going for it. It has a lovely high street, as shown on the photos, and a lovely castle towards the top of the high street. So this is all the good news in terms of the town centre. But next slide, please. Okay. So next slide shows that even though Guildford Town Centre is a lovely town centre, the area around the riverway, as shown on the left-hand side, the area has been neglected for many years because of flood risk. It's really difficult to deliver any development because of the risk of flooding. So by delivering the Guildford Flood Scheme, there's a huge opportunity for greening this part of the town centre. So our proposals are going to be truly transformative for the town centre. And on the right hand side is an artist's impression of what the scheme could look like. So this will be new green infrastructure, including a public area and new trees. So there will be significant biodiversity improvements in these areas, and also improvements for the local community. And as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, the defences will be integrated into the environment. And on the right hand side of this slide, the artist's impression, it's difficult to tell, but there's a black dashed line near the right hand side, and that dashed line represents the top of the new flood defences. And what this really means is that, based on the artist's impression, that you will hardly tell that we've got a flood defence in that location. So that is our aspiration, to make sure that all of our defences are blended in and integrated into the existing environment. So next slide, please. Thank you. So this is another before and an after in the town centre. So the left-hand side shows the existing situation along the riverway, and what this really shows is there's lots of concrete and hardly any green at all adjacent to the riverway in this location. And the right-hand side shows the scheme proposals with a lovely new boardwalk for people to walk adjacent to the river, and an enhanced green space with tree planting as well, and a public space. So this is another example of where we're going to be creating an enhanced green space and making the area more healthy, sustainable and resilient. So next slide, please. So this is the final before and after images, and this probably speaks for itself. Again, the left-hand side shows existing, the right-hand side shows proposed accessible open space. So this is another example of enhanced green and blue infrastructure with significant improvements for the local community, plus other benefits. So on the right hand side, this picture is taken from Guildford Borough Council's master plan, and as I mentioned earlier, my project team are working hand in hand with Guildford Borough Council and Surrey County Council to deliver the project. So it's a true sort of partnership arrangement. So that covers some of the blue and green enhancements. If I can move on to the next slide, please, which will be the final part of my presentation. So I have two slides, and these relate to fish passes. And fish passes are a really exciting part of the project. Some of you may be familiar with the concept of fish passes, some of you may not, so I hope this will be of some interest. Next slide. So the first slide, on the left hand side, it shows a map of the riverway in the vicinity of Guildford. So this area on the left hand side is effectively the red oval on the right hand inset, the area by Guildford. So there are lots of fish in the riverway, and the fish move up and down the river for food, shelter, and to reproduce. This all helps maintain the health of the river. So far, so good. However, the bad news is that over the years, numerous weirs have been built on the riverway, and these weirs have created obstacles to fish. So between the weirs, the fish are essentially trapped in that small little area and cannot travel up and down the wider river. So the good news is that the Guildford scheme, in addition to the work in the town centre, we are also proposing 2 new fish passes, which is upstream of Guildford, and locations are shown in the green text. St Catherine's, a new fish pass, and Unstead, a new fish pass. So these fish passes are important because they form part of a wider programme of fish passes on the riverway, and by delivering the 2 fish passes as part of the Guildford scheme, this is part of the missing pieces of the jigsaw to open up over 100 kilometres of the riverway to fish passage, which will be a fantastic environmental enhancement for the area. So that shows the 2 locations where we are constructing fish passes, St Catherine's and Unstead. The next slide represents what is a typical fish pass, because some people or many people may not be familiar with the concept of fish passes. So on the left hand side of this slide, I have shown a typical arrangement of a fish pass. So I've got on the bottom left, it shows the existing weir, which is the obstruction to fish passage up and down the river. So what we tend to do is build a new channel for fish, which is shown towards the right hand side. And this new channel bypasses the weir obstruction. And then at the top left of the picture, we tend to have a structure, a fish pass structure at one end to manage the height differences. And an example of a typical fish pass structure is shown on the right hand picture, and this is a classic sort of fish ladder fish pass, and this enables a fish to actually climb up the fish pass and help to bypass the way. So hopefully all the slides I presented shows that the Guildford scheme is not just about flood defences. As important as that is, we will also be looking to improve the environment and to provide exciting new blue and green infrastructure. So next slide, because that completes my presentation. Thank you for listening. If you are interested in the Guildford scheme, I have some further details shown on this slide. If you want to get in touch, my email address, and we've got a project email address that's shown on the slide. We also have a Twitter or X account, And we also have a project website, which is shown at the bottom of this slide. So if you're interested, feel free to get in contact or have a look at X or our website. So that's enough from me. I will now hand over to Professor Prashant, and I will do my best to answer any questions you have later. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I'll jump in before we hand over to Professor Kumar. Thank you very much for that presentation. I thought that was very interesting. Could I encourage anybody who have questions to just use the Q&A button at the top of your Teams and maybe type in your question, and I will then post those questions to Steve at the end after Prashant's presentation. So we take all the questions and answers to both presentations in one go. So please type in your questions. Okay, on to our next speaker today. So it's a pleasure to introduce Professor Prashant Kumar. So Prashant is a professor of air quality at the University of Surrey, and he's also founding co-director of the Institute of Sustainability at the university and director of the GCARE Center for Excellence in Air Quality. Prashant is a prolific academic. He's published more than 400 journal articles. He's pulled in millions in external funding to the university and has gained much acclaim both in the UK and worldwide, receiving several prizes for his excellence in research. He's an expert in air pollution, green infrastructure, low-cost sensing, and he's engaging with governments worldwide, holds honorary professorial positions in Ireland and China, and also contributing to local charities in Guildford working on these issues. How he finds time for it all has always been a mystery to me. He's an excellent leader. He's been leading the Reclaim Network, and it's a great pleasure to introduce him and hear what he has to say about the latest initiative, the GREENIN Network Plus. So, Prashant, without further ado, over to you.
Thank you, Thomas, for your very generous introduction and the comment on finding time. I guess you could see the hairs I have lost actually since I started doing research. So that explains the story basically. I'm going to talk today about a very exciting sort of, the initiative which follows on to the work we have been doing on Reclaim Network Plus, which will be ending in February 2026. We have been supported by a new network, which is called GREENIN. This is a micro network plus. So the Reclaim is basically a full-size kind of, the network plus, the grant. The whole idea of the GREENIN has been focusing on indoor greening, while the Reclaim has been focusing on outdoor greening. So it builds basically a very nice interface. So GREENIN is a consortium which includes the UKCH, University of Oxford, Bath, York, and Cranfield University, and it's led by me at representing the University of Surrey's Global Centre for Clean Air Research. So this is basically a little bit less money in as compared to the bigger kind of network there. But the whole idea on putting the greening together has been how we can bring together the community who has been working around the green infrastructure, blue infrastructure, and focusing more on the indoor, the indoor environments. So that's where the name of the GREENIN comes in, which is greening the indoors, transformation of indoor environments in a changing network, in a changing climate. We'll be launching the network on 6th of October. So this is more like the early warm-up actually of the network, and give you an opportunity, taking this opportunity to share and invite you to join the network going forward. So the team, you can see some of the faces which are more possibly familiar, but there are a number of the colleagues from Oxford, Cranfield, York, and coming from the Bath. They are kind of new, and we got the team basically involving the network fellow as well as the project manager, who is supporting basically the initiative there. So they all bring very diverse sort of expertise, starting from chemistry to health to the bioresource to the ecology. This is where I guess the team that brings the multidisciplinarity into the into the network. So we started with around 33 partners, so who basically have been formal, the partners in the project, providing the letter of support. They come from businesses, local government, the initiatives from the charities, as well as international collaborators. So so you could see, the quite a kind of a, the broader spectrum. But the idea has been now to invite the partners, and the network is open for anybody. So we have already started sharing actually the invitations to the people who we knew actually would be interested in it. But we are very happy to kind of extend the invitations to anybody you have in mind. So please drop us a line, and we'll be happy to invite them, so they could be part of they could be visible on our website, but could be part of the lot of activities, which include some funding, as well as developing the research in that area or the products in the area. So we'll be very happy to invite them. So there's a lot in there, so you don't need to really read through all this the text. But the whole idea has been from a very kind of a the general perspective. I believe that every one of you on this call might have some plants in your offices or in your own houses. But did you ever think actually what did this plant do to the microenvironment inside it? So they got a role actually to play, improving the indoor air quality, also improving the thermal comfort conditions when it's very hot, because they could also mediate the relative humidity and temperature. At the same time, they could also help actually the impacting the indoor environments in a way that it could reduce the impact on, let's say, on on the fungal growth, or you see a lot of the issues during the winters there. But one of the major question is that there is very little research actually in terms of what exactly these plants are doing. Qualitatively, we can say that they are doing a great job, but we do not really know the quantifications. This whole idea actually to fill that bit gap through this network. So the network will do some research, but facilitate a lot more research and bring the people actually who will be interested in supporting them to build product services and the intelligence actually in this particular area. So there are a number of these questions you can think about. See, what potential does indoor greening hold for creating healthy living spaces, and why is this further exploration of this approach needed? How do innovative indoor greening techniques impact indoor environmental quality? So that includes basically the indoor air quality, plus basically the thermal comfort, plus the the impact on the biogenic the compounds and the bioresources. And what are the major engineering barriers for deploying indoor greening? I mean, we all want it, but what are the issues there? So there are a number of these overarching questions we'll be we'll be taking forward as part of the project. So if you go next, please. So the whole sort of the vision is, could we have the indoor greening for climate-ready living? Why we say climate-ready living? You might have realized already over the years that the outdoor environments, outdoor climate is changing quite dramatically. You saw in the previous slide that the previous speaker talked about how these flooding and other things are impacting. What happens outside impacts indoors as well. So one of the challenging there is to understand actually what sort of impact these outdoor environments under the changing climate change are having on the indoor. So this is what we wanted to see, reimagining the indoor spaces to support health and well-being in a climate change, unlock the potential of indoor nature-based solutions, and which is the area which is largely untapped. compared to outdoor greening, where there is a lot more work going on. Obviously, there is still a lot more, the gaps exist there. And create healthier and more resilient buildings through interdisciplinary research on indoor plants and greening. So this is kind of, the vision, the overall. And what we wanted to do as part of the network is we wanted to build a network of the multidisciplinary specialists. So everyone, including whether they are individuals or academics or researchers or company or business or councils or charity holder, so everyone is welcome. So we'll be sending a call to join, actually, the open call to join, invitation to join the network very soon. So we are working on it. There are a number of, the conduct collaborative studies. So some of them could be supported through the network, but then also supporting, actually, if anybody is working in this area, to bring together, the knowledge base and helping them. Developing the practical guidelines for building design and management professionals and promote wider use of greening to enhance building environments and public health. So these are the four sort of overarching, the bigger objectives of the project. So what we're going to do is, there are quite a number of themes we'll be talking about, and our colleagues might be leading some of those themes and having some sort of, the community around them who is interested in it. And that could include about understanding the indoor environmental challenges. So that's one thing, is if you don't understand, then you don't really come up with the answers. We know broadly what is needed, but we wanted to pinpoint to the specific gaps and the questions we wanted to answer. Then evaluate the potential of indoor greening. That could include the potted plants, it could include green walls, moss, hydroponics, but also there's quite a bit going on around the indoor farming. So, how does that indoor farming not only help with the food, but could also help and with the other things in there. Integrating the greening into buildings, which is quite an important aspect. So when the new, the builds are being built, actually, you will see that the greening is always a part of it. Obviously, it's possibly not designed in a way that's doing some sort of ecosystem services. I'm mostly looking from the aesthetic point of view. But the most important gaps we have there is what does a particular sort of, the greening are doing in terms of, let's say, improving the air quality, how much improvement it brings in. If there are any unintended consequences of this greening, what sort of impact it's bringing. So understanding those pros and cons, and then coming up with the solutions by engaging and exchanging that knowledge, actually, to the people who are working in this particular area. So there's quite a lot of work to do with the residents through the Living Lab approach. So we run the Guildford Living Lab. We will be, working with the educators, designers, policymakers, and then co-produce basically the resources that could be in the form of design guides, briefs, tools, and aligned with the, aligned with the national policies and the net zero goal there. So these are the sort of, the things. So how are we going to achieve this? We got basically the cross-cutting theme. There are 4 cross-cutting themes. And those themes basically talks about fostering multidisciplinary system thinking, incorporating visual appeal and human requirements in indoor greening design, upscaling and outscaling via DIY approaches. So the whole idea is that if you know actually what sort of things you could do, then whether they could be applied to other places, whether we can upscale it, and what could be do on a DIY basis, do it yourself sort of things. And leveraging the existing investments already, because this is a network, so it means that we don't really get a lot of research funding to research, but then we are generating the ideas, and we want to take forward those ideas for further sort of research proposals and fill some of the gaps by ourselves while highlighting those to the funders as well as to the regulatory authorities and policymakers and council that these are certain things that could be done in there. So you see a little, the plot on the right-hand side, the figure, you could see there are loads of these different type of plants: aquatic, potted, green walls, hanging, hydroponic, desk, moss walls, vertical gardens. But then at the same time, they also provide you a number of benefits there. So the whole idea would be to look into these sort of, the trade-offs. And then you could see there is a table actually, which we prepared at the time of the proposal, where you have these AIEQ, which is the indoor environmental quality aspects like the air quality, thermal comfort, acoustics, mental well-being, and energy efficiency. And then you could see some sort of color coding actually which is more qualitative. It's more like the expert judgment, where you could see where you have a low impact, where you get high, you get moderate. And one of the ideas is, could we convert actually this, this table into more concrete, quantitative sort of, the impact through the evidence base. And that is missing. And that's what we wanted to kind of push around to see if we can do that through the network. So out of this core cross-cutting theme then, we got some enabling activities, which are 6 of them. So firstly is building the network. So this is where we'll be inviting, many of you or whoever is interested in that through an open call, but also bespoke, the invitations going to the people. Then working groups is setting up some working groups, which will lead to the rapid reviews. So each of these working groups will lead a rapid review. So we are thinking of 4 rapid reviews, and there are topics we have already defined in there. And then we have some feasibility studies via Sandpit. So you got, we will be having those 4 Sandpit events, 3 or 4, depending on how much the money we have, and each of the Sandpit will end up with some of the projects. And they will be funded projects, but they will mostly be the projects which are building upon the existing work which has already been going on, so that you can basically, otherwise with a little money, it's very difficult to start from scratch. And then DIY indoor greening design and solutions, fostering then the multidisciplinary thinking and dissemination. So for the dissemination, we already established the LinkedIn account, which is GREENIN Network Plus. If you can go onto the LinkedIn, you can follow us. On X, we got the account. On Blue Sky, we got the account, and there is a website which we are working currently. So all our social media accounts are active. So I would request you to follow those, so you can be updated with the latest sort of the approaches. We will be producing the bi-monthly newsletter, so they will be going to our network members. So that will also be an opportunity for them to make aware of the activities. And we have set up a GREENIN Micro Network YouTube channel where we'll be seeing a lot more of this coming. So we'll be continuing these webinars until February as part of Reclaim Network, but then some of these webinars will be shared with the GREENIN, focused around the indoor. So there will be the webinar series, which we have set it up through Reclaim, and we are very proud of, as Thomas said in the very beginning, this is the 40th webinar, and I'm the 80th speaker speaking on this webinar. So this has been done without a failure every month from the last sort of, the 40 months actually since the network has been there, and we wanted to continue that legacy into the indoor greening side, going forward. So there's lots of opportunities to just, to follow, engage, tell us actually if there is something interesting you wanted to do or you wanted to do with the network, tag us into your posts, and also, participate in the activities to get a little bit of funding support from there. So there are also some fellowships, which would be mostly for the early career researchers. So if you are an early career researcher, so that will be an opportunity for you to sort of, apply to the funding, and we will be issuing those calls one after another once we launch the network. So as you can see, there is a lot of, the opportunities to get involved. If you want to be a webinar speaker, please write to us and we will slot in, and there is a lot more flexibility. So you don't need to really speak next month. So if you think that in 6 months' time, you'll be happy to speak, you'll be doing that. Fellowships, engagement events, Sandpits, the workshops which allow you to network. So there's a lot more opportunity which we'll be offering through the network in terms of bringing this community together. As you can see that the branding of the network is already started. So you can see the logo on the right-hand side, which was co-designed with a wide, the wider sort of, the inputs across the consortium and outside. The website will be coming in there. And we got this, the email address. You are most welcome to write to us if you have anything, or just drop an email to me and we'll forward to the people there. And as you can see that it's a effort which is collaboratively developed through a number of these universities involved in it. And I tried actually, I'm not sure whether I really been successful in doing that, using that sort of, the rational, wherever you go, you see that I love Guildford, I love Cranfield, I love Bath, right? I thought of kind of using this picture to make I love GREENIN, right? So this is or we love GREENIN basically. So let's join the network together. Let's invite you all to be part of this exciting journey for the next 24 months since October we start, and make some useful changes which could help actually transform our indoor spaces where we live and where we spend over 90% of our time. So thank you very much for listening, and thanks for the opportunity to give it this warm-up talk about the network in advance. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Prashant. Thank you for an excellent talk, and can I just echo encourage everybody here with an interest in this to join the network. I've been part of the Reclaim network, and I found it really a transformative experience. Lots of new opportunities and opening up. So I can warmly recommend you joining in. Thank you to both our speakers. Two excellent and interesting presentations. I think my Teams is broken because I can't see any questions on the question and answer. I don't know if that can't possibly be true.
No, there's a couple of them if you want. I can read them out if you want.
Yes, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so there's a question from Miriam who says, her question for Steve. I noticed that the flood works will mean a reduction or relocation of parking areas. What is the approach for this? And she realizes that this might be more of a question for the council. But if you have any word on that.
Thank you. That is a very relevant question because we are discussing that with the council. So what the council are looking at doing is gradually improving the park and ride facilities within the town centre, and also improving the public transport provision within the town centre to reduce the reliance on car parking within the town centre and use of cars. So basically it's going to be increased use of park and ride and improve public transport within the town centre. Perfect.
The other question we had for you was, what have been the main roadblocks for the project, and what's been put in place to sort of resolve them or go around them?
Okay. Well, there's been lots of challenges on delivering this type of project, but an important challenge has been managing expectations of the people in the town centre and our partners and stakeholders. Within the town centre, we are impacting lots of landowners. Approximately 300 landowners are being impacted by our proposals in the town centre. And there's lots of people from the public who have got interest and partners from councils. So everyone has their own views and priorities of what Guildford FAS or Guildford scheme should look like. So when we started the appraisal, there were many options that were tabled, and we have considered what I showed today was what's looking like the preferred option, but we started off with many different options for the project. So a challenge has been making sure we consider people's views on the project, and where their views cannot be taken forward, explaining to them openly and honestly why their proposals cannot be taken forward. One example of that is one of the options we considered at the start of the project was upstream storage. So rather than having defences in the town centre, tried to capture all the water upstream. But for many reasons, upstream storage is not viable. So what we did at a recent public event is we presented a number of posters to the public on how we've considered upstream storage, and unfortunately why it's not viable as a solution in the town centre. So what we want to be doing is seen to be delivering a project for the people of Guildford, not imposing a project upon the people of Guildford. So yeah, a key challenge is about people, making sure that we manage people's expectations and clearly communicate with them. And there's been lots of technical challenges, but I could probably be here for the next 6 hours explaining all the various technical challenges around the town centre. So the one I'll probably focus on is about people and stakeholder engagement.
Steve, what's the timescales for the project? for completing it?
Yeah, we are looking at completing the appraisal stage middle of 2026, and then the indicative timescales are 2 years for detailed design and planning permission, and that would mean a construction start date of 2028, and we'd be looking at approximately 2 years for construction.
Okay.
So those dates are all subject to change. We need to finalise those dates when we get to the end of appraisal and prepare our business case. But broadly speaking, the message we're communicating to the public at events is we're looking at 2028 for starting construction, best case scenario.
Okay. I have a question. So we've studied the sort of similar scheme that was implemented in the city of Bath back in the 1960s, where they also considered different options. And one of them was raising the defences in the city, I think much like you have suggested here in Guildford. And that was rejected on aesthetical grounds. Maybe Bath is different from Guildford in that way. But instead, they went for the option of dredging the river, making the river sections more hydraulic efficient and taking out old bridges, art bridges and more efficient bridges. And so were those sorts of things considered as well?
Yeah, we've considered a wide range of potential options. Dredging has been one option that we've considered, but we are looking at designing against the big flood event, 1 in 100 years plus climate change. So dredging would not really be an effective solution for the project. We've also considered raising existing flood defences, and where possible, we are actually going to be raising some of the flood defences. Where I showed the blue line on the plan on my slides, some of those sections, rather than being brand new flood defences, they're going to be raising existing defences. So we are raising defences where we can. Another issue, a challenge that we have faced relates to existing bridges. Where we've got old-fashioned bridges, they provide a hydraulic bottleneck. They stop the water from flowing under the bridge. So we will need to replace one bridge in the town centre. That's a footbridge by Guildford Borough Council offices or Yvonne Arnaud Theatre for people who know Surrey. So we do need to replace a footbridge, and we do need to make some modifications to the town centre bridge at the bottom of the high street. So our scheme isn't just simply flood defences. There's a whole range of other solutions that we are considering. The headline being new flood defences, but that's part of a broader package of works that we are taking forward.
Okay, thank you. Charlotte, I wonder if there's any questions for Prashant on the Q&A channel.
Not that have come up, no.
Well, I had a question. So I think.
Hold on. There's one that's just come through.
Okay.
Andy has asked, what are the major engineering barriers to deploying indoor greening at scale for the GREENIN project?
Yeah, so I think there are a number of the barriers which you could kind of divide into the different domains. So, for example, engineering barriers, you could think of what are the practical constraints as well, what are practical barriers. So engineering in the sense that let's say some of the green infrastructure you're putting in is easy, right? So like potted plants and all. But if you wanted to think of putting the moss walls or putting any structure actually which could influence or affect the walls or the architecture of the houses, then that could become an issue as well. So these are like very simple examples. But at the same time, there are practical constraints as well. Sometimes you wanted to put the plants in, but we don't know actually what plant would be useful or helpful. We mostly look at the aesthetics point of view. some of the plants could be detrimental to the indoor environment. So, for example, producing a lot of BVOCs, which is the biogenic volatile organic compounds, producing pollens, and that could possibly be not the best thing to have actually inside the homes. So that sort of, the intel is a big barrier in terms of what and where we could include and what sort of benefits we could have. And then there are major scientific gaps in terms of, let's say if you put plants inside, what are these plants doing? What sort of benefits they are doing in terms of reducing, let's say, the particulate matter, or in terms of improving the or altering the microenvironment, such as the temperature, relative humidity. So I guess if you look around actually on the indoor greening, there are less research and evidence than the gaps. So it's an area which is in very infancy, and which is quite interesting to see that this area has been possibly since the civilization. You might have seen actually the plants inside the houses there, but we never understood actually what sort of ecosystem services those plants are providing. So I think there are a huge amount of gaps, and we have highlighted a number of those questions we wanted to kind of take forward as part of this part of the network there. So I can keep talking all day long, but this is the short answer. I'm happy to
short
have a
answer.
chat,
It's a good answer, Prashant.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you, Prashant, if there's any early careers researchers on the call or watching this afterwards who are itching to get involved in the synthesis reviews, or do they email you, or do they email the Greening General email account, and how do they go about getting involved?
So we will be sending the open call to join the network. So we've been working on the form, which is nearly there, and that will be on our website. So we'll put that on the top of the website, so anybody is visiting there. But if anybody is interested, if they can just drop us a line, so that line could come to me or to the GREENIN, the email we shared, but just send it to me, and then we'll keep them in mind. And as soon as the form is open, we can send them that information that, by the way, this is open now, please fill that form. It's a very simple form. It allows you to just provide your, the information, and also show your interest, where your interests are. So that could also allow us to allocate you to the different working groups, depending on your interest areas. So I think this is one of the things we are still doing on the form, and I think we are working, when we release it. So there will be an opportunity there.
Okay, excellent. So again, I'll encourage everybody with an interest in this to get in contact with Prashant and team to get involved. Okay, I think we're coming to the end. Thank you again, Steve, Prashant, for your excellent presentations. Thank you, everybody who in the audience, for listening and for engaging in the discussion. Just before we say goodbye, just point to next month's seminar, where we have Dr. Amy Phillips talking about nature-based climate action for schools to cities, and Dr. Rana Mustafa from Surrey, who's going to talk about a toolkit that has been developed as part of the Reclaim Network, a toolkit aimed at local authority officers and councillors to help improve decision making in the green infrastructure space. So looking much forward to that. So with that, I think we should conclude today's proceedings, and thank you, everybody, and see you all next month.
Thank you.
Bye.